Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, an update on the $440 million Electric Works development. Marshall County is a Stellar Communities finalist and is riding momentum. We introduce you to Café Baby, aimed at saving parents time. The INnovators spotlights a talkative toy. Ivy Tech and Independent Colleges of Indiana partner up. Special Olympics Indiana marks a milestone, and our insiders take on the top stories of the week. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. Developers behind the planned $440 million Electric Works project in Fort Wayne say the effort is at a critical moment, claiming a small group of people is trying to thwart its progress. Even so, they remain bullish about the project. RTM Ventures partner Jeff Kingsbury and former Greater Fort Wayne Inc. leader Eric Doden joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick to give a progress report.
Jeff, I'll start with you and that post from RTM. Obviously concerned about, as we were talking off camera, what you're describing as a small group of people who maybe have other ideas about the project.
Yeah, and we felt it was important to let the community know about that. But what we're focused on really is the level of community support that we do have for the project. From the beginning, when we started this 3 years ago, this has been all about the community and our focus on quality of life, education, workforce development, and economic development. And so that's why 9 out of 10 Allen County residents support the project. So that's what we're focused on.
This is a redevelopment of an old General Electric campus that once employed, I think, more than 20,000 people in its heyday. Unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned support, Parkview Health, IU Research and Technology Corporation, Indiana Tech, Joseph DeQuee, the fine dining establishment. You've got a lot of commitments.
We absolutely do. Over 125,000 square feet committed. But what I'm most excited about is 225 new planned jobs for Allen County, and that's really what this project is all about. It's about talent attraction, It's about economic development, and that's what we're staying focused on.
Eric, in your current role at PAYGO, new company, PAYGO USA, but also your previous role as president of the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, as you look at this project and the significance that it could have for Northeast Indiana, what is it, especially when it comes to this whole issue of talent attraction?
Well, I think, Fort Wayne's on a march to be a nationally recognized economy, and we're starting to have publications all over the country. We have 5 national publications writing about Fort Wayne right now, 224 million impressions. So this is the kind of project that makes you a national economy, and it starts to attract jobs from national companies who are looking to relocate to the Midwest. How
important is that momentum? First of all, the reaction or the recognition, I guess, from national markets around the country. How important is that to the future of the project?
Well, I think the momentum that we've achieved just has to continue, and it's critical. I mean, without momentum, your economy begins to become neutral and die. And so we're just committed to getting this project done and making sure that we continue that momentum that we've established in Fort Wayne.
Jeff, what's going to be key? We were talking off camera about the need for the private sector to inject perhaps some capital.
Yeah. Well, the playbook on how to develop innovation districts is pretty clear, and it's played out really all over the country. In Durham, for example, with the American Tobacco campus, we're even seeing it here in 16 Tech, Discovery Park in West Lafayette, where you have these partnerships between eds and meds institutions collaborating with business to drive innovation. That's what Electric Works is really all about. So we're going to continue to focus on building our leasing with the right tenants that want to partner and collaborate with eds and meds institutions. But in addition to that, we also need to show to the national capital markets co-investment opportunities for them to come in and join local investors into the community.
As we wrap up, Eric, as you look at private sector potential out there in Fort Wayne, but also Northeast Indiana, how much potential is there in the private sector market?
Well, we have national investors looking at Fort Wayne right now. I'm talking with them on an almost daily basis, and this checks a lot of boxes. It's historic preservation. It's about education. It's about workforce development. It's about these types of things. And so, and it's also impact investing, social impact investing, which is a very big deal to especially the national firms. So, but they also want to see that we have state and local investors co-investing with them. And so I think when we put all this together, it's going to come to a very successful conclusion.
Electric Works, massive project in Fort Wayne, looking to perhaps close on the deal later this year, perhaps November. We'll keep an eye on that. Jeff Kingsbury is a partner at RTM Ventures. Eric Doden, president at Pago USA. Thanks, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
All right.
Still to come, we spotlight a business looking to deliver a balanced diet to babies and feature a language teaching talking toy. But first, for the second year in a row, Marshall County Crossroads is a Stellar Communities finalist. The county is working on a plan to boost quality of life for years to come. Marshall County Economic Development Corporation CEO Jerry Chavez came in studio to talk about the county's momentum.
The Stellar Communities is an initiative that has been going on for several years now, impacting many communities around the state. This is a competition for funding, including matching funding, I believe. That's part of that. Marshall County is a finalist, along with 3 others, so 4 finalists. How do you feel about your proposal?
You know, we feel very good about our proposal, and why. You know, we have a lot of planning that's gone in last year, and we're going to enhance that planning going forward.
So you are a repeat finalist, if you will. I think you have 8 pillars in this plan, but let's pick out one because it's an important one, and that's workforce. These are all focused, these initiatives that you're pursuing, all focused on quality of life and improving quality of life. But as you look at the workforce, you've got a specific strategy where you're going to market to veterans, try to get jobs for veterans.
Yeah, you know, we're fortunate enough. We're taking a page out of somebody else's playbook, a little bit of our past, but we've enlisted the help of a congressional delegation to help us knock on Pentagon's door and say, hey, how do we do this? We want to learn, we want to find the keys to success and then develop a plan around that.
Talk about that and the potential, in your view, for marketing jobs to veterans. And I want to ask you, too, because the state legislature has recently, I think this session, relaxed taxation on benefits for veterans, which was a big issue for a lot of people.
No doubt about it. You know, there are over 250,000 retiring veterans coming out of the armed services on an annual basis. And these retired veterans are very highly employable, if you will. A lot of skills, a lot of training that the government has put into these folks. And they're used to showing up on a regular basis, right, which is very, very key for us. But
online job portal, too, right?
Online job portal. You know, once we figure out, and we're in the throes of making the connection between private sector job skills and turning that into the military vernacular, if you will. Once we figure that out, then we're actually going to market ourselves to 2 bases.
Very good. Let's talk about, we have a limited amount of time here, but another focus area is going to be housing. Housing's a big issue.
Housing is a big issue, especially in north central Indiana. So if you look at our Stellar application, and all our communities, our 7 communities actually are within the county as well, you'll see a housing development project that is geared towards what makes most sense for that particular community.
As we look forward, the finalists, 4 finalists, the winner, the one winner, will be announced later in the year, correct?
In December, we have our application due in September with a final presentation by the Stellar Steering Committee to the dear folks at Okra and other organizations that are part of that application process, and the announcement will be made in December. Hopefully we're there. All
right, Jerry Chavez from Marshall County, congratulations. Good luck with the initiative there in Marshall County. A lot going on in northern Indiana. Jerry, thanks for making the trip down.
Thank you very much, Gary.
All right.
Later in the podcast, the INnovators with Dr. K introduces you to the Chatterack, and Ivy Tech details a new key partnership. But now, Café Baby aims to help parents deliver nutrition to their babies while still juggling the demands of everyday life. Sherry Seago paired her love of cooking with her daughter's interest in entrepreneurship to launch the company. Seago talked about Café Baby with Kylie Valletta in The Business of Health.
So you have another title, which is Grandma.
I do.
This was your daughter's idea. Tell us how the company got its start.
So she decided whenever she had her little girl that she did not want to buy store-bought food, and so she decided she wanted to make her own. And so she found that a lot of her friends were having the same problem as she was with the time constraints that it takes, and so she thought there was a need, and so we just thought we would try it.
And Café Baby was born. You make all the food. You're the chef. Tell us how you prepare it and how you think that makes it healthier.
Okay. So we slow roast and steam everything, so we don't cook anything at really high temperatures to try to preserve the nutrients. And then we puree it, and then we freeze it immediately.
And that's different than how standard baby food is done that we find in the grocery store.
It is.
Okay, so you've outgrown 2 commercial kitchens. So tell us what you're looking for next.
So we have outgrown 2 shared spaces, and we have some retailers that have their eye on us, and so we're anticipating a growth spurt. So we're looking for a location on the north side of Indianapolis, maybe in the Castleton area, to have about 90% production space, 10% retail space, so parents can come in and pick up their baby food on their way home.
And you have funded the company yourself so far. Tell us what you're looking for funding-wise to get you through that growth spurt.
So we are looking for an angel investor that will come alongside and help us build our dream kitchen, the space that we need.
And let you grow the way you would like to.
Yes, someone who has an interest in helping babies stay healthy.
And your revenue has tripled since you started in 2016, so you're seeing good growth in numbers as well?
It has tripled every year.
Wow.
So we've had we had a slow start in the beginning, but then it really picked up, and it was a good slow start.
Yeah, get your feet under you, just like a baby.
Right, exactly.
So you're on the doorstep of a big growth spurt, but tell us a little bit about your products. They're not just for babies.
They are not. So if a mom plans on nursing, we like to say that we feed baby from birth all the way through toddler. And so we do lactation cookies for moms who are nursing, who might just be having a dip in their milk supply. And so lactation cookies, they help moms produce more milk. And then we have 3 different age-based menus, starting with single ingredient purees, very smooth consistency, and then we go all the way up through toddler food.
It grows with the baby.
It does.
And tell us, just a few seconds left, your experience with Startup Ladies and how that's helped you grow over these few years.
So Startup Ladies have, they've really gotten us a lot of exposure, made a lot of connections to help us network with other companies, people who can get us some exposure and introduce us to people.
All right, well, good luck as the company keeps growing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.
Remember, you can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Still to come, Ivy Tech and Independent Colleges of Indiana team up, and Special Olympics Indiana prepares for this year's games. But first, children tend to pick up the most language in their first years of life. The Chatter Egg by Chatter Products knows more than 100 words in English and either Mandarin or Spanish. CEO Michaela Gilbert was the featured guest of Donald Korotko on the INnovators with Dr. K.
So I always ask our guests, how did you come up with the idea?
So I came up with the idea for Chatter Eggs. It was a combination of a couple of classes I had in high school. I went to Noblesville High School, and I had an art class where I was handed a wooden egg and told to create an idea out of it. And I created Chatter Eggs, but it was a barnyard animal, still did the wobbling motion, but didn't have the foreign language element that it has now. And then the secondary class that I took was Innovations, which Don Wettrick started at Noblesville. And I took that class, and we had a brainstorming session with the old project and created this foreign language element and added to it. And that's kind of where the idea came from into the Chatter Eggs that we see on the table, which wobble and say a phrase in English and repeat in a foreign language.
So what's the specific innovation? Is that it? The idea of the language and the wobbling? And give me that idea.
Sure. So the specific innovation with the product is that it's speaking both languages simultaneously. There are not a lot of products for children that are not screen-based that teach them foreign language at all. The ones that are available have a switch on the bottom, and these are speaking the languages at the same time.
Interesting. What's the potential market for this innovation?
So the toy industry is the potential market, which is an $86 billion industry worldwide. It's a bit overwhelming. So I like to narrow it down into this helicopter parent demographic, which is a millennial parent. It makes up about 256,000 parents in the United States.
Right now, what are potential capital funding sources for you?
So currently, we actually have been bootstrapping everything, meaning that we've kind of used our own money or made everything low cost. However, in the near future, we're going to be running a crowdfunding campaign and then going after typical investment funding.
Excellent. What's the do you see as the growth potential for this?
So there's a couple of different growth potentials. The first being adding into new languages. But what I really see for this product is that it's the start of a line of products that grow with the child from the moment they have a chatter egg until they're 10 years old. They're finally fluent in that foreign language.
Hence the name Chatter Products, right?
Yes.
LLC, which
Didn't want to limit myself.
Really like that. That's great. So describe the major challenges for like the year ahead now for you.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is going to be that fundraising. I haven't experienced raising money for anything like this before, so I think that phase is going to be really the toughest.
And then you're also going to be moving to Denver, so you'll be doing this a little bit on the side as you're working in Denver.
Yeah, I think
as well.
It'll be hard to balance with, I'm starting a new job, so it'll be tough to be balancing starting a business and starting a new job at the same time.
But it's still a smart way to go instead of the old ramen noodles in the garage. You know, so I think that's great on your part to do that. So,
thank you.
As we do on each and every show, I try to provide some what I call Dr. Case prescriptions. So in your case, I came up with these prescriptions on what I call the 3 C's for a new innovation moving into a viable venture, which is exactly where you're going. The first C I put up was credibility. You're going to have to keep educating consumers on the value and viability of this because it's new, it's different, it's a toy, but like the nuances you're going to have to explain to them and sell them. Second is C is customers. To demonstrate this viability by actually selling to some of the potential target markets you're looking at. And once they start to buy and it's easier to explain, I think that's going to help. And the last you already mentioned it in the year ahead, and that is capital. To focus on these viable sources of capital that can move you sort of to the next level. And I even consider you might include looking at some strategic partners that have some kind of reputation that could help you as well.
Definitely.
And I think being in Denver, it gives you more of an expanse to look at, so I think that can all help you.
Definitely.
As you go forward.
Thank you.
So we certainly wish you all the best with that.
Yeah.
Where can our audience find you, Michaela?
So they can find me at chattertoys.com. Sorry, we've changed that a couple of times. And then they can also find me at my personal email, which is michaelakimberly123@gmail.com. Spelled MIKAELAKIMBERLY123@gmail. It's a bit long.
But the site is actually chattertoys.com.
Chattertoys.com. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. So we wish you all the best going forward, Michaela.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very proud of you.
Awesome.
Later in the podcast, a big milestone for Special Olympics Indiana, and our insiders weigh in on the top stories of the week. But now, Ivy Tech Community College and Independent Colleges of Indiana are partnering in hopes of helping college students, especially first-generation students, achieve their goals. The goal is to help students that begin at Ivy Tech connect to ICI's members. Ivy Tech Vice President Russ Baker and ICI CEO David Wantz talked about the partnership in our Eye on Education segment.
David, I'll start with you. Sure. ICI represents 30 independent colleges around the state of Indiana. As you talk about this partnership with Ivy Tech, on the one hand, you would look and say it may be a strange partnership, but as you dive down a little more, there seems to be a lot of synergy potential.
Well, there's more connecting us together than there is keeping us apart. We all live in Indiana. All of our campuses are in communities that are pretty close to Ivy Tech campuses, and we're all serving the same population. So we think it's the right thing to do to try and reduce costs for students and to accelerate them getting getting them through their degrees and into graduate school or work. And we're also concerned about the businesses in Indiana to make sure that we're supplying the right kinds of people that they need to carry forward.
I want to talk about the potential impact on workforce. Russ, as you look at from an Ivy Tech perspective, what's driving this partnership? We're talking off camera, it's kind of leadership that's pushing this out there, and there could be additional partnerships in the future.
Absolutely. It isn't new for Ivy Tech to be working with independent colleges across the state, as David said. We've had relationships in the past, but this is really, I think, a fresh focus on that. And what we're really trying to do is, from an Ivy Tech perspective, is the more good opportunities we have for our students to transfer within the state of Indiana, the better it is for, I think, our state and for our students. Yeah. So we love the fact that the independent colleges are doing this without a legislative mandate, but they're doing it because they've decided it's the thing they want to do.
David, talk about this partnership and preparing the whole student and the impact that it can have potentially in addressing workforce issues around the state.
Right. So there's something known as the T-shaped intellect. Businesses will tell us that they want students to be ready, job ready on day one. Absolutely. But they're also looking for students who can sustain a career. So they want people who know how to find information, they're creative, they work well together in teams, they have tenacity. They know how to communicate. They can read. They write. Those are those broad kinds of skills that the liberal arts really does seek to instill in students. And
Ivy Tech has tremendous
there you go.
technical expertise, so combining the strengths of the liberal arts institutions with the strengths of Ivy Tech.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Talk about how this impacts then potentially cost. Educational cost is such a huge issue.
Well, it's no secret that education is expensive, and Ivy Tech gives students the opportunity to go for their first year or two and save a significant tens of thousands of dollars off the total cost, but still get that degree from one of the ICI schools that they might seek. So the cost benefit is in the tens of thousands.
Wow. Yeah. Is this, and David, I'll ask you the final question, is that's looking forward, a potential partnership. It seems like we're in a day and age when lots of people are getting together and exploring new and different ways of partnering to impact workforce, to impact the educational experience. Do you see a bright future between your organizations?
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because Dr. Elsperman and I were at a luncheon together, and she leaned across the table and said, I've got kind of a crazy idea for you. And it was, because of our proximity, if some of your students at private colleges wanted to get a certificate as they were going through their college degree, we think we could work that out. Well, that was just music to our ears.
Yeah.
So I think it is. It's a leadership piece, and we're all looking forward to how we can help Indiana grow.
Looking forward to the story and watching that impact on workforce as well. David Wantz with the Independent Colleges of Indiana. Russ Baker with Ivy Tech Community College. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Still to come, perspective on the week's top stories from our panel of insiders. But first, Special Olympics Indiana is preparing for the 50th anniversary Summer Games, set for this weekend at Indiana State University and Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. More than 2,800 athletes are set to take part, a new record. CEO Jeff Moeller previewed the milestone event with Bill Benner on Inside Indiana Sports.
You've been with your organization 16 years, your last almost year and a half as the president and CEO, but this is a very special milestone that take place 50 years, hard to believe.
It is hard to believe, and you only turn 50 once, so you got to do it right the first time, right, Bill? So,
That's right.
50 years ago, two professors from Indiana State University took a chance that people with intellectual disabilities could gain so much from sports, and they brought Special Olympics to Indiana, and we've been part of the Terre Haute community and part of the Hoosier State ever since.
Anything, I know, again, all the summer games are always memorable indeed. And as a disclaimer, been on the board of directors of Special Olympics, but what do you have unique for these summer games?
Well, actually, one of our co-founders, Dr. Tom Songster, is returning to the games for the first time in 10 years, and he's going to join us along with Dennis Schmidt, who was our first president back in the early 70s, and they'll join us and be our honorary chairs of the games. And then from there, we're going to have special award ceremonies for our athletes. We're going to do some trading pins to commemorate the 50th games, and we'll just have a few things that we're going to keep to ourselves until the athletes show up at the games.
And again, this is a very busy time for you and your staff because this weekend also taking place for the 6th year in cooperation with the IHSAA, the unbelievable unified IHSAA Track and Field Championship.
Yeah, it's one of the best things that's ever happened to us. And by partnering with the Indiana High School Athletic Association, we're able to expand sports opportunities to students who normally wouldn't have the chance to represent their school. So this weekend will be the 6th championship for unified track and field, and 12 teams will be traveling around the state to IU Bloomington to compete for the state title.
Champions Together, again, has been transformative in the way it's brought together students at the high school level. Well, including actually K-12. Yeah.
Well, at the end of last school year, we were in 610 schools, K through 12, and we think by the time we finish this school year out, we'll be able to tally somewhere over 750 schools, K through 12, that we have programming in. It's more than just sports, though, Bill. We're talking about anti-bullying, disability awareness campaigns, inclusion, and trying to open up doors of opportunity for students with special needs.
And Champions Together was one of the things that last March, the Department of Education thought that they might cut funding from Special Olympics at the federal level. Tremendous, unbelievable blowback. But one of the programs, the specific program in Pearl, was Champions Together.
It was. For us here in Indiana, that if the cut had happened, it would have affected us by about $250,000 and really would have stifled our growth in trying to get into, hopefully by the end of a 4-year cycle here, that we'll be in over 1,000 schools across the state. And it really would have hurt our chances of doing that. But luckily, based upon the members of Congress that represent us here in Indiana and those across the country, we were able to get back into the budget.
By the way, I know you want to give a shout out to the city of Terre Haute. They've been unbelievable hosts for all these 50 years.
Well, it started with those 2 Indiana State University professors, but we've been there ever since. And every year at June, our athletes return to what we call their homecoming. Most of them do not have an opportunity to go to college, and so Summer Games is their homecoming weekend, and the Terre Haute community is stepping up big time for us. I will reveal one more thing. The city of Terre Haute and the business partners in that community are stepping up to provide uniforms for our athletes marching into opening ceremonies.
That's
paid for by the community of Terre Haute.
That's terrific. As we wrap up, these games end, but there's always something going on. Next up for Special Olympics?
We do things year-round, and so after Summer Games, for us next is our annual plane pull at the Indianapolis International Airport. But this year will be new to us because we're partnering with the Indiana Sports Corp, and we're going to be part of the Corporate Challenge. So any corporate team that is part of the Corporate Challenge can earn bonus points for that competition by coming out and pulling the plane with us.
All right. Well, always something to look forward to. Jeff Mueller, thanks for your leadership. Continued and have a great weekend in Terre Haute for the 50th Games.
And finally, our insiders give perspective on the top business stories in Indiana. This week's panel includes Gregory and Appel Vice President Steve Appel, Vox Global Managing Director Mike Marker, and Hallowell Consulting President Jennifer Hallowell.
Mike, we're going to start with you. You're a Fort Wayne guy, and a lot of news in Fort Wayne this week, both the Electric Works project and that future of that project, but also GM CEO Mary Barra visiting the GM truck plant, $24 million investment, but that just continues a string of investment that GM has made in that plant.
Yeah, they've been on quite a roll there since 1986 when it first opened. A lot of investment that's happened, an awful lot of jobs. And the workforce story there is really good and will continue to be good. The relationship they have with the union, I think, is good as well. And that's important because a new contract is being negotiated soon. So I think that's positive. It's also really good that they're involved in the manufacturing of the pickup trucks. And those are in more demand than anything else really out there. And when you look at surrounding states that have had GM plants and other auto manufacturers that are producing the sedans and other automobiles that aren't in as high as demand, you've seen downsizing, you've seen closures. So testament to the workforce there, and it's great to see GM growing in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, Steve, as you look at it, it's manufacturing, but of course it's advanced manufacturing. And again, as Mike points out, trucks are red hot, and you got that plant producing them faster than they can do it. It's impressive.
Yeah, a couple of things. Well, with all the tech growth and everything, it's good to see some good manufacturing trucks back to our roots of Indiana, and it is advanced manufacturing too. And the other interesting thing about it is that with all the CAFE fuel standards issues, yet it's the big trucks that are selling. Right? Yeah,
exactly. I mentioned off the top, Electric Works, massive project, mixed-use development in downtown Fort Wayne, $440 million at an old General Electric campus. That project continues to move along, have inked a number of deals there. Once employed 20,000 GE workers many years ago. But now there's maybe some rumblings that there are people, perhaps in the mayor's office, perhaps elsewhere, trying to scuttle the project.
Well, I certainly don't know the backstory on this, but it's kind of disturbing. I mean, it would be a real shame if this project didn't go through. And so hopefully they can come together and sort things out. I've heard a lot of great things about it. You have a lot of different kinds of entities, organizations, companies coming together with interest for it. And it's the kind of project that really helps the community move forward. We've seen some in central Indiana, and certainly there have been others in Fort Wayne. But I mean, it's a big project that needs to move forward.
And you touch on something I think that's important, these live, work, play projects that you see in Indianapolis and Fort Wayne and South Bend and all over. They're really an important part of that quality of life piece.
Absolutely. It attracts more people, more business, more visitors, and the economic impact for the whole community. It really helps change that neighborhood and bring new life, and that's what they need.
We had folks on earlier at the top of the show talking about this, Mike. As you look at this project, how important is it, in your view, for Fort Wayne, and does it happen? Does it, they said demand continues to be strong. They just got to get the financing closed. They say they're almost there, hope to do it late in the year. You think it'll happen?
Well, look, as communities compete for dollars and investments around the nation, I think this is critically important for the future of Fort Wayne. It's about talent attraction, it's about placemaking and quality of life. And there's good momentum that's been going on in Fort Wayne. It really started in many ways under Mayor Richard Graham. He set the stage for the convention center expansion and Park Field with the minor leagues. We really need city leaders there to champion this going forward. And I also hope that it's not unlike 16 Tech in some ways here in Indianapolis, where you saw organizations like the Lilly Endowment step up because they saw the economic development value, the quality of life initiative that it was. And so I'm hopeful that it gets done. It's not done yet, though.
Also news this week in a global nature here in Indiana, the World Trade Center, World Trade Center, Indianapolis, signing a memorandum of understanding with the World Trade Center in India. Kind of a complicated deal. But I think the bottom line is, to me, this is reflective of Indianapolis's and Indiana's growing global profile and connection to business around the globe.
It absolutely is. And there's a couple of pieces to that. When Mayor Greg Ballard was in office, he did a lot of travel and reaching out across the globe, which ended up attracting several companies and was part, I think, of the emphasis deal and other relationships that were built. And you also see the same thing from the state level, and Governor Holcomb has been doing these same things. And over the last few years, foreign investment in Indiana is up like 300%. We have almost 1,000 foreign-based companies that are now in Indiana with a couple 100,000 jobs. I mean, in this day and age, these are the kinds of things that you need to do to build relationships to keep investment growing in Indiana.
Yep, definitely on the rise. Now, here's one of my favorite stories of the week. The beer industry adds billions of dollars to the Hoosier economy. Steve, Mike commented, the Beer Saves America study. I think that's a wonderful title, as Mike said. But saying, billions, 5.5 billion to the state's economy, 36,000 jobs throughout the state. Did that surprise you?
Well, the craft brewery movement has been huge. I did think initially this was a fraternity study that has come out, but the craft beer movement is big in Indiana. It's big nationally, and it's also spurs M&A activity because the larger beer companies are buying the small craft beer. So it's interesting and it's fun to see.
When you pair up the brewer growth and then you look at our distribution network here, that has to happen in part because of the major events that are hosted around the state where copious amounts of beer are consumed, right? Yes. So we have an awful lot of infrastructure to support that. And part of what's not well known, I don't think, across the state is the spirits industry. All the bourbon distilling that goes on down in Lawrenceburg under all kinds of different labels. So we have a great beer industry story and a spirit story to tell.
Yeah, and the spirit's growing. Not as fast yet, but they're coming on the scene. Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett delivered his State of the City address this week, touched on a number of things. Indianapolis's emergence as a tech hub. Also kind of rolled out this idea of an infrastructure tax, essentially, for neighboring counties to participate and help pitch in and pay for the infrastructure that commuters into the city use each and every day. Jennifer, thoughts?
Well, I think you have to assume that the rollout wasn't what they had hoped it would be. A group of mayors and leaders, part of the Central Indiana Conference of Elected Officials, have been working for a year and a half to think about how we can do things regionally to help support the region. And this proposal, I think, is akin to a commuter tax, which is a little bit different. The IU Public Policy Institute has done some comprehensive research, and their finding is that Indiana's cities and towns, individually and collectively, are struggling to have the resources to compete with their peers outside the state. And I think you want to think broader about it, and are we competing with Nashville and Green Bay and Columbus and some of these other communities? And so I think what you've seen in the reaction today is that other folks think that there's more that we should do, and maybe it looks different.
I think these mayors around the donut counties are well-intended, and they talk about regionalism, and I think they're more active on regional activities than their predecessors have been. But acting regionally gets harder, and when it involves money potentially coming out of your community, that presents challenges. But when you look at nearly 180,000 commuters from these donut counties coming into Marion County to work, and the roads and the bridges and the infrastructure that's required to support those trips to and home from work. We got to figure out a pathway to make that happen. And I'm glad Mayor Hogsett's pushing for it. I agree that the way it's rolled out hasn't been what they'd wanted for sure, but hopefully they can get something done here.
Want to get a mention of the Dunes National Park, Steve, the impact that can have. It seems like a relatively small change, but first national park in Indiana ever. Already the 7th most visited national park in the country, and the impact on tourism can be substantial.
Yeah, that's great. It's great for the region. I was really surprised. I did not realize the 7th largest most visited, so that's impressive, and we'll have to get back up there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, anybody can jump in. The month of May and the race grade, what do you guys think?
The flyover was amazing. The weather was amazing.
Not amazing, and then
no,
when
I just
came
thought it was
back,
a regular.
it was unbelievable.
I've never seen anything like it, and the race obviously was great and smooth.
Carb Day was always another fun corporate outing event for many people too.
What Mark Miles and Doug Bowles and Allison Millington have done with that experience out there has been remarkable. And with NBC coming on board, what they did and how they addressed the broadcast and new elements they brought into that, it's really
I think NBC in the mix is huge. I really do. Mike Marker, Steve Appel, Jennifer Hallowell, thanks very much.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state, at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.